All right, fam. Welcome back. L Cross 7 here. You can call me Luke. We are back for the gameplay tutorial for Farming Sim 19. We will be covering the help section in this section of the series, in this section of the tutorial series. So we're going to be covering the help section. So like I said, so we've covered the tutorials so far. We've covered the 6 tutorials. Um, just the basics in the and the first thing that you should go to now once you're in game, the next tools to be able to assist you in becoming a more in becoming a more experienced uh, farm farming simulator uh, player is to read the help section. So we are going to go ahead and go through this here. So we are going to cover in this part of the series, we are going to cover the help section. We're going to cover farming basics. We are going to cover advanced knowledge. We're going to cover animals, forestry, production recap, sugarcane, making money, shop, and miscellaneous in future VODs. In this VOD, we are going to cover crops, plowing, sowing, harvesting root crops processing, oilseed radish, cotton, and improving yield. So let's go ahead and get into that. So crops. So again, once after doing the tutorials, you're going to come in here, going to load into a game. You're going to come in here. Once you load into a game, you're gonna come in here and see. Um, Once you load into a game, you're gonna come in here and you're gonna see crops. And we'll load into a game in the gameplay tutorial, but for the purpose of for the purpose of time and things, things like that. For the purpose of time, I went ahead and loaded into a game through the game for the gameplay tutorial. After we do the help section, after we cover everything that's in the help section for the regular game, we'll cover the seasons portion in future VODs. But this is for the regular farm sim. This is for the regular farm sim game without seasons added, and we'll cover that in future VODs. All right, here we go, fam. So, in farming basics, crops. In Farming Simulator 19, there are 13 types of crops: wheat, barley, canola, sunflowers, soybeans, corn, oat, oilseed radish, potatoes, sugar beet, poplars, sugarcane, and cotton. And there are the icons that represent each of those crops. To process field crops, there are 3 mandatory steps: cultivating, sowing, and harvesting, of which we went over in the tutorials previously earlier in the series. All right, next, fam, we have plowing. Use a plow or cultivator to aerate the ground before you start to sow your crops. To cultivate, you must lower the cultivator into the ground, of which we went over in the previous tutorials. And then there are different, and then when we get into the gameplay tutorial, there are going to be different types of plows that you can utilize based on the type of tractor, and we'll cover that more in the gameplay tutorial. Let's go ahead and move on to sowing here. Sowing, you can sow using a seeder or a planter. To sow, you must fill the machine with seeds from a seed pallet and or a mod like a multi-filling station, of which we'll cover in the gameplay tutorial. So also, select the crop you want to sow, turn on the machine, and I'll lower it into the ground just like we went over in the sowing portion of the tutorial earlier in the series. Seed pallets can be purchased at the shop. Some seeders can cultivate and sow in one go. Check the shop description to find a machine that can do this. So, and we'll cover that more in the gameplay. We'll cover that more in the gameplay tutorial. But IRL, actually purchasing pallets and purchasing bio bags is how IRL farmers actually uh, purchase seeds, and they purchase individual seeds. They don't purchase a pallet of seeds. They purchase individual seeds, of which is something I would like to see in the future, either a mod or a either a mod or something either a mod or something in game to kind of enhance the experience, but we'll get into that later. Let's go ahead and move on to harvesting here. Harvesting: when the crop is ready to be harvested, use a combine harvester with a suitable header attached, and we'll cover that more in the gameplay series. uh, to harvest, you must unfold the harvester and the header if required. Turn it on as we went over in the tutorials. Unload your harvester into a trailer as we went over in the tutorials. It can be sold at the associated place or stocked for later use. And we will go over that in the gameplay tutorial of how to store crop and what to do, based on the situation where you're at in the game at the time. And we'll be starting. We'll be doing various uh, gameplay tutorials. All right, root crops. So this is a different type of harvesting. The cultivation of potatoes and sugar beets requires specialized sowing machines and harvesters. So right there in that above picture, you have the two. You have the sugar beet is the yellow one, so that's the ropa. That looks like the ropa, and then you have the grim. Um, you have the grim potato harvester, and those are very expensive, and we'll cover that further in the gameplay tutorial when we actually get into the gameplay of this tutorial series. The easiest and fastest way of harvesting potatoes or sugar beets is to use a self-propelled harvester. Excuse me. However, a machine like this is quite costly and likely to exceed your budget early on. So yes, it is very um, expensive to get into potato or beet harvesting, and does take a while. And there are mods for those that want to step outside the realistic specifications and go altruistic. So, and we can cover that more in future VODs, fam. So let's move on to a root crop processing. A cheaper alternative is to use a tractor with several specialized tools. This basically works in two steps. Once the plants are fully grown, you have to cut the foliage with a home topper like the Grimm KS75-4, as seen in those two pictures right there. After that, you can get the crop out of the ground using a harvester like the Grimm SE260. So it's a little bit slower way, a little bit more involved process, using a tractor and the harvester. But that is how some small potato operations actually do their potato harvesting. All right, here we go. Next is oilseed radish. Oilseed radish is a special crop as you don't harvest it at the end, but dig it in. As we covered this in the tutorial, once the plants are visible, you can use a cultivator on your field. It is also called green manure and works as a fertilizer, increasing your next yield by 30%. So, if you want to have and yield, so when it comes to yield, fam, uh, so when it comes to yield increasing your yield means more money. So if you increase your yield and you do the proper field preparation, you will increase your money. Okay, so let's move on here to cotton. Cotton. For sowing cotton, you need a planter. To fill it, use a seed pallet or a mod that can fill the seeds. Uh, to harvest cotton, you must use a self-propelled cotton harvester. When the harvester tank is full, you must unload the large bale of cotton. You need a special trailer to move it to the selling point. And we'll cover this in the gameplay tutorial. And we'll follow kind of the flow of the help section, going over crops, going over plowing, going over sowing, going over harvesting, root crops, root crop processing, oilseed radish, cotton, improving the yield, which is the next section here. All right. So improving a yield, as I was just alluding to earlier, there are many ways you can take care of your field to increase its yield. To obtain a 65% yield bonus, you must spread fertilizer twice plus 25% each time. Spread lime every three harvests plus 15%. And to avoid a 35 yield malus, you must remove bad weeds, which in the regular game are going to cover the entire field, and we'll go over that in the gameplay portion of this tutorial. Plow after corn. And here's what I was talking about, and here's what I was alluding to earlier in the tutorial series, was plow after corn, potatoes, sugar beets, and sugar cane. Otherwise, it'll be minus 15% if you do not. Pretty much if I'm using either a beet harvester, a potato harvester, or using a corn header, I've made it my practice to plow in those instances. Um, but that is going to be it. That is going to be it for this for this VOD, fam. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and hit the like button. It would be greatly appreciated. If you have subscribed, thank you. Welcome into the L Cross fam. Appreciate you. And until next time, fam, stay safe out there. I hope you all are doing well. In the next part, we will cover advanced knowledge. So until next time, fam, stay safe out there. Much love to each and every one of you. And peace.